I think what has happened in the suspicion and fears of Islam and towards Muslim is that in trying to capture terrorists, authorities have had to engage in racial profiling. They've had to say, okay, well, who are these terrorists? Terrorists are from Middle East or Pakistan or Afghanistan, South Asia. And so doing that racial profiling, they've created this image in their own minds and the minds of the public. Brown, bearded man. Could be from anywhere, but brown, bearded guy. Or some darker shade, anyway, of white. Not white, but some darker shade.
I think Islamophobia is about a fear of, Islam and Muslims or anyone who they think are Muslim, right? And that could be, Middle Easterners, South Asians, Latinos, anyone who generally is brown-skinned and could be seen as Muslim. Sikhs wearing turbans, for example, were mistaken as Osama bin Laden, and the man was shot in the United States, right? So it's not simply who are actual Muslims, but who are perceived Muslims.
Yeah, definitely. For example, I was doing a project on Sikhism, so I went to the temple and I met with them with my group, and all they were talking about is how they are now known after the 9/11 event that they're just dangerous. Like now everyone's like, well, what is that knife they're carrying around? I don't remember the name. It's frustrating so many people. Like I could tell the Sikh person I was interviewing, he was just really frustrated. He's like, but I want people to know that no, this is not a violent act, it's just part of our religion, that's what we're supposed to do. And then he would sometimes explain, like, I would, like, if someone asks me, what's your religion, I always say I'm not Muslim, I'm Sikh. But then I found that interesting. Like, you could just say I'm Sikh, but I'm not Muslim, I'm Sikh.
Many people have no idea who these turban-wearing men really are. News 12 Westchester's Shannon White takes a look inside their world in this two-part report, Beyond the Turban. Shannon.
Brian, the Sikhs are not terrorists. They're not Muslim or even from the Middle East. In fact, they come from northern India and form the 5th largest religion in the world. And today is their new year. We visited some of the 1,000 Sikhs who live in Westchester, and because we were at their worship service, our crew wore head coverings.
All right, so your thoughts?
Well, it's funny how, the first thing she said was, they're not terrorists, they're not Muslims, they don't come from the Middle East. That means all terrorists are Muslims and from the Middle East. That's their definition.
Which is clearly not the case.
It's on the news, too.
Because there's Muslims everywhere.
They don't have to be from the Middle East. We don't have to be terrorists if we're Muslim.
Muslim males as terrorists, I can think of a specific example of that there's a number of Muslim males were trying to parade an airport, I believe in the United States, and some passengers were concerned that these men performing the required prayers were actually praying to Allah before committing a suicide bombing. And so they got on the airplane and they're continually harassed, and eventually I believe they're asked to actually leave the airplane just for practicing their faith.
In some sense, it's true that it's gone beyond simply a fear of a religious extremist ideology toward a more generalized kind of fear of the other, of the brown other. These brown-skinned people in our Western societies. It was ironic that shortly after 9/11, in the year after 9/11, Rohinton Mistry is this award-winning author, Indian author, non-Muslim, was detained at the airport. And he had a goatee, right? So he was saying, why am I being detained? It was brown and goatee, that's enough now to have you stopped at the airport.
Because I believe in the next 30 to 120 days, there is a danger, a very high probability, that a U.S. airliner will come down because of one of these bombers. And so we've got to go to more than just the normal process that they're talking about now. We have got to go to very, very strict screening, and we have to use profiling. And I mean be very serious and harsh about the profiling. If you are an 18 to 28-year-old Muslim man, then you should be strip searched. And if we don't do that, there's a very high probability we're going to lose an airline.
I mean, let's not forget that it was only yesterday, it was just the blink of an eye that the Japanese were interned after World War II. 50 years ago, we think we've become enlightened. We would never do that again. Right? We've come a long way. 50 years ago is just yesterday in the history of humankind. It's a blink of an eye. And in German society was the most scientifically advanced, literate, educated society, and if it could lead to the Holocaust, why should we think that in Canada we couldn't go into camps again? They wouldn't round up people again. Why should we be so secure that, oh no, our civil liberties are so strong now that we won't be engaging in that kind of stuff? I don't have that kind of confidence. No. Well, I think first we need to, people drawing connections so that our neighbors realize that, okay, yeah, there are some extremists, but that doesn't represent the majority. We also need to recognize that there are grievances and legitimate grievances against American foreign policy, against Canadian foreign policy. And that is what is instigating the extremism and the hatred, rather than any innate religious ideology or anything like that. So perhaps if we were to change some of our foreign policies, it would make a difference. So we need to think about that.
I come from a land, from a faraway place, where the caravan camels roam. Where it's flat and immense and the heat is intense. It's barbaric, but hey, it's home.